Welcome to Stuff Not Taught in School, a series of videos about stuff not taught in school. Many of the topics are sensitive, but all are important. Thus, all ages are encouraged to view. Today, I want to speak about alternative versus conventional treatments. There was an article written that described how a child from a family who preferred natural treatments was given oregano oil instead of antibiotics, and the child died. A fan wrote to me and asked, "Hi, what are your thoughts on this kind of situation? Do you think it's fair and or accurate that the use of alternative and natural methods is referred to a pseudoscience? I don't think there are enough studies done on alternative methods to regard using it as a pseudoscience." So, one thing I want to point out from the start is that it's a lot easier for mainstream medications to be approved than alternative medications. So, for instance, Zyprexa, which is a medication intended to treat schizophrenia, although it's given for many other conditions, including depression, which is ironic since it's been linked to cause depression. There's less testing for the effectiveness of Zyprexa than there is for the effectiveness of fish oil. But because fish oil is a natural product, it's harder to get FDA approval. The side effects of conventional medication sometimes can be far worse. So, for instance, I was going through some of the notes from my grandfather, and he had found articles that some of the medications he was on for, I think, blood pressure or blood thinner or something like that, were linked to worse side effects or other bad side effects, and he made notes to tell the doctor about this. And I saw many times these notes, which implies that he went to the doctor, showed the doctor said, "Oh, you have nothing to worry about," and then the side effects occurred. I do admit that natural cures are not always the best. So, for instance, I know someone who was given homeopathic eye drops instead of the recommended surgery, and the person, after a year of these eye drops, the person went almost blind in that eye not because of the eye drops, but because of the lack of the absence of the necessary medical procedure. So, yes, surgery and mainstream medication sometimes are the best options, but many times there are plant-based alternatives. So, for instance, many pharmaceutical drugs are based upon compounds from plants. They're not just made up. Could be ancient medicines that worked and still do work, and then the medical industry said, how can we patent this? So they took extract from the salix tree, from the willow tree, and basically made salicylic acid, and now they're able to patent that as aspirin. So too, there is a drug called Coumadin, which thins the blood, and it warns people taking Coumadin not to take it with other blood thinning substances. So, for instance, cassia, which is the form of cinnamon most familiar to Americans, has a compound called coumarin in it. So Coumadin is based upon coumarin, very similar structure, and the problem is coumarin can be bought in a spice store, and Coumadin has the patent, so it's a lot more expensive and pushed. But the idea is that pharmaceuticals will push for taking Coumadin and then tell you don't take coumarin with it because it will make your blood too thin. So your option is don't take both. You could just take the natural one. No FDA approved statements here, but it should possibly work as good as the Coumadin without the side effects. Good natural cures are not pseudoscience. This is going back to the fan's original question. So some natural cures are pseudoscience, but not all natural cures are. The good ones are not pseudoscience. Something is not pseudoscience because it's disproven. Yes, if something is disproven via fair means to not be a true science, then it is a pseudoscience. If something that has not been accepted by the FDA does not mean that it's not true science. Fish oil may help depression. There's been a lot of testing for that. Psychiatry, however, is a pseudoscience. So, for instance, what psychiatry does is it looks at symptoms rather than causes. So, if someone has people don't just have depression; they have a cause, and depression is a symptom of it. So, for instance, someone might have hypothyroidism, and the depression is a side effect of it. So too, some people don't have a condition of turning blue. They might turn blue because they're not getting enough oxygen. So treating the depression is like treating the blue color. It's like someone who comes in, the patient is blue, and then they're given something to make the patient less blue. And all that does is mask the fact that the person's not getting enough oxygen, and the person would die. So too, just treating the depression for hypothyroidism would mask the fact that the person has thyroid issues, which yes can cause death, and has a lot of other, perhaps more common but less severe effects, depression, anxiety, things like that, etc. Interestingly, my friend who has the side effect of depression, her depression was the least, meaning her mood was the best when she was eating the diet I recommended her, which was full of prebiotic foods which help the gut flora, healthy foods, ginger, onion, things like that, chickpeas. I also want to state, I mentioned before that not all alternative medicines or not all alternative treatments are non-pseudoscience, not all of them are good. So for instance, homeopathy, yes, that is pseudoscience, but because homeopathy, and I mentioned this in an earlier video called The Death of Psychiatry, because homeopathy is a pseudoscience, all alternative treatments get pushed under the same, get painted with the same brush, and they all get called pseudosciences. And that's unfortunate because, yes, there are plenty of alternative methods, and some of them work and some of them don't work, but then the consensus is that they all don't work. So too, conventional medications, some of them do work, yes. For instance, I mentioned before about the person whose eye blood vessel exploded, that could have been treated with conventional medication. So rather than saying whether or not natural or alternative are better, and I don't do this often, usually I do go to an extreme and say that this is right majority of the time, if not all the time. But here I do admit that when it comes to natural versus alternative medications, sometimes, I don't know if I'm saying taking the middle ground, but sometimes it's not, actually always it's not one or the other. Sometimes the natural is better, sometimes the alternative. Sometimes natural is better, the natural alternative methods are better, and sometimes the conventional medications or treatments are better. So when the article stated that this stuff couldn't have worked, meaning the oregano oil that the person was prescribed, oregano oil has been proven to be effective against bacteria, viruses, fungi. So that's a lie, because oregano oil has been proven to work. Unlike homeopathy, oregano oil does work. Once again, it's not a question of alternative versus conventional, it's a question of looking at the specific case. Functional medicine does that. There are some medicines, there are some practices that also, non-functional medicine practices that do that. So whether you're taking a functional medicine approach or a non-functional medicine approach, the idea is, it's not black and white. Don't just say alternative or conventional. Ask your friends, do research, ask informed doctors what the best treatment is specifically for the specific case.